Welcome to Civil Science Academy. Today I am going to explain class 6 of unit 6, the major landforms of the earth. This unit is quite important for UPSC, so without any delay, let's begin. First, look at this image. In this unit, we are going to cover everything shown in the image, like mountain ranges, plains, tributaries, mountains and plateaus. We will learn how they are formed and their importance. Especially we will focus on the mountains, how mountains are formed and different types of mountains, and plateaus, how they are formed, and plains, their formations and features. So let's start step by step. Firstly, the landforms are formed by the two processes, the internal process and external process. And now the internal process means it leads to upliftment and the sinking of the earth's surface. For example, mountains and plateaus are formed due to the upliftment of the earth. And similarly, external process, it involves wearing down, means erosion and deposition of the earth's surface. This is done mainly by running water or wind. For example, plains are formed by the external process. First, we will learn about the mountains. Now, under the types of the mountains, the first one is the fold mountains. This is the fold mountain. The fold mountains are very common. I will explain how fold mountains are formed. The detailed explanation will come in later chapters, but here we will see a basic idea. Okay, for example, suppose this is the oceanic plate. Suppose this is the oceanic plate and this is a continental plate. We know that oceanic plate is heavier than the continental plate. So when the heavier plate collide with the lighter one, the lighter plate moves upside and heavier plate sink downwards like this. This is the oceanic plate and this is the continental plate. This will go downward and this will go upward. Below this, we have the astrosphere, which contains the molten magma. Suppose that layer already has around 50% of magma. Suppose that we will, to understand clearly, we will assume that the magma has 50%. When the oceanic plate goes inside the astrosphere, it mixes with the magma and increases it further. Due to this, sometimes volcanic eruptions take place on the Earth's surface. If, for example, suppose this is a pot which have this much of water is filled. If we include more water, it will erupt. This is how the volcanic eruptions also works. At the same time, during the collision, the fold mountains in here, when they collide, the fold mountains will be formed. For example, the Himalayas are the fold mountains formed at the convergent boundary. Convergent means where the plates are collide each other. The next one is the block mountain. The block mountains are formed when the earth crust breaks due to tensional forces. The divergent means the two plates are moving away from each other. Because of this tension, the crust cracks. In here, the cracks and form the faults. And along these faults, some blocks are move upward and some blocks move downward. Look at here. Some blocks are move upward and some blocks are downward. The upward blocks we call it as horst and the downward block we call it as graben. This mainly takes place in divergent boundaries, but it can also happen on land where faulting occurs. For example, Vindhya and Satpura ranges in India and Rhine Valley in Europe. Suppose this is two divergent plates. Let's say we mark them as A, B, C. In the case of divergent plates, when they move away, the fault or crack will be formed in here. At this place, one block may go downward and another block may move upward. And the downward part forms a valley. We call it as a graben, like I said. And the upward part forms the block mountain. We call it as horst. This is how the block mountains are formed. And look at here. This is the block and this is the downward plate. This is the B plate which is gone downwards. It formed the valley. We call it as graben. And upward part we call it as block mountain and also the horst. The movement of plates happens mainly because of the movement of magma inside the earth. The fold mountains are formed only at convergent boundaries and at least one continental plate is needed. The block mountains are formed at divergent boundaries where the faulting happens. The block mountains are not formed in the convergent boundaries. These terms are very important to remember in UPSC exam. The next one is the volcanic mountain. The volcanic mountains are formed due to volcanic activity. For example, look at this image, and this is how volcanic mountain is formed. And inside of the earth, the magma builds up at the convergent boundaries. The convergent means the collision. The heavier plate goes inside the subduction. We call it as subduction. It mixes with the magma inside the mantle in here. The magma rises upward and comes out to an opening called as vent. This is the vent because this is also the vent, and this creates a volcanic mountain. The convergent volcanoes are usually explosive because sometimes the lava comes steadily, but at another time pressure is increases suddenly and it erupts violently. At the divergent boundary, when two plates are moved apart, the magma comes out through the cracks in the seafloor. When these move away from each other, in here cracks will be formed. The magma will comes out to the cracks and in the seafloor. This forms a new crust on the seafloor. As a result, mid-oceanic ridges and volcanic plateaus are created. Volcanic mountains can be formed at both convergent boundaries and divergent boundaries, but in the case of continent versus continent collision, in this case, there is no volcanic eruption. The volcanic eruptions occur when the oceanic plate and continental plate collide. The oceanic plate and oceanic plate collide and two plates diverges. In these three cases, the volcanic eruptions will be formed. So remember, volcanic eruptions are not formed in continent, means two continent plates of convergent. If this is two continent plate, they are converging. There is no volcanic eruptions will be formed. When the oceanic plate goes under a continent plate, it sinks and melts, as I told earlier. This increases the magma inside. Sometimes the magma rises upward but stops in between, and at another time pressure suddenly increases, so it erupts violently. That is why convergent volcanoes are explosive. Here, but in case of divergent boundaries, here there is no extra addition of magma. Whatever magma inside, it simply comes out steadily through cracks in the crust. That is why divergent volcanoes are not explosive. They mostly form new crust, mid-oceanic ridges, and volcanic plateaus. The next one is plateau. An elevated flat land is called a plateau. The Deccan Plateau in India is one of the oldest plateaus in the world. The Tibetan Plateau is the highest plateau in the world. Now, how plateaus are formed? The plateaus are formed in different ways. The first one is volcanic activities. When a large amount of lava flows out and spread over an area, it cools and forms a flat surface. Over a time, this creates a volcanic plateau. For example, as I told, Deccan Plateau formed due to the lava flows. And second one in the tectonic uplift. When a large section of the Earth's crust are pushed up by internal forces, they form plateaus. For example, Tibetan Plateau formed due to the collision of the Indian and Eurasian plates. Collision means, as I told, the convergent. And next one is erosion. And sometimes rivers and glaciers cut down surrounding land, leaving behind high flat surfaces. For example, Columbia Plateau, partly shaped by river erosion. The next one is the plain. The plains are formed mainly by the rivers and the tributaries. When a river flows down the slope of the mountain, it erodes the rocks and the soil. The river carries forward mud, sand, and other materials. When the spread of the river reduces, it deposits this material. Over time, these deposits spread out and form a large flat area which we call a plain. For example, suppose this is a mountain. When it rains, the rivers start flowing down the slope. While flowing, they erode rocks and soil from the mountain. The river carry the eroded material, for example, mud, silt, sand, pebbles. And when the river slows down in the lower areas, it deposits the material it carried. Slowly, these deposits build up and form a flat lands. This is how the plains are formed. For example, Indo-Gangetic Plain, one of the largest and most fertile plains in the world. And this is end of unit 3. The next topic is the land form and the people, but these points are not very useful, so we will skip that part. We will stop here for today, and I will upload unit 7 in the coming days. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and take care.